puts a close to the Apple River stabbing case that we have followed now for 2 straight years. Some stunning developments at the end. Yeah. When we think about, we talked about it all morning, the discretion Wisconsin judges have, the potential maximum Nicolae Miu faced. We were talking upwards of 100 years behind bars, whether he would sentence consecutively for each of the victims injured, hurt, killed that day, or whether the judge would package us all up into one basic act and put all the victims together into a concurrent package. And that is what we got. So where it nets out, and I know it's not just numbers here, but a lot of people pay attention, and Judge Michael Waterman just sent Nicolae Miu to prison for 20 years. Correct. Start unpacking that for us.
There's a lot to unpack there. So, we had discussed the maximums, and then there was the 5-year enhancement that was added as well that the judge referenced when discussing what Mr. Miu could be facing here. Ultimately, the judge decided that these sentences were going to run concurrently. And that was the most shocking, in my opinion, of decisions, because although the judge imposed a sentence in prison for each of the counts, with the exception of the misdemeanor, of course, he decided that they would run together, which means that in terms of the time that Mr. Miu will be in prison, it will be 20 years less the 732 days of credit that he has. So he'll be out at around age 73.
Yeah, and important to note, because the way Wisconsin stacks their sentencing, there is a quote-unquote prison commit term, and then he put the extended supervision on. In Minnesota, we get the sentence where that quote-unquote 2/3 is baked in. Right. So very important to say right now, we can say definitively 20 years. I mean, this judge is well-reasoned. I'm not going to take a position on what he just did. I just thought he was very eloquent. I had asked you early on, would we get kind of a full accounting of what he did? And he clearly did that. And what's interesting to me, as we take a look outside the courtroom, this is Hudson, Wisconsin. We are on the ground outside the St. Croix County Courthouse. I would have to imagine reaction will be mixed. People will be all over the place. We know in that courtroom was Nicolae Miu's brother, who we see leaving right there. We know Miu had several supporters, different family members in there, and obviously Isaac Schumann had plenty of supporters there. And A.J. Martin, one of the ones badly stabbed, nearly died, as the judge recounted there, and he gave a victim impact statement today. What was interesting to me in terms of packaging up that sentence concurrently, meaning all together, was he even made he went 1 year higher for Martin, because Martin was most significantly injured. He imposed a 6-year sentence for that stab injury, as opposed to 5 for the other 3 who were lesser hurt. So the judge had some discretion in there, recognized that that was a more serious offense, but then still packaged it up into the concurrent. I don't know what we make of it. It's obviously his call. Wisconsin judges have huge discretion. That's what we saw just there.
Yeah, and I think here the judge really focused on the fact that this was not intentional. The jury specifically found that this was not an intentional act. And so the judge spoke about that and really focused on that. And then he talked about the reason that he's doing it concurrently is because he viewed it as a single continuous act over a short period of time. So this isn't a situation where Mr. Miu injured some, walked away, and came back and injured others. Based upon what the judge stated, had those been the facts, I think he would have then sentenced it consecutively instead of concurrently. But here he took into consideration Mr. Miu's history, his character as he outlined, and felt that it was appropriate to impose that concurrent sentence.
And one thing I thought was, he talked about, obviously he was not convicted on first-degree intentional homicide, which he was originally charged with. That intentional crime comes with it in Wisconsin, a mandatory life sentence. So he made a point to say the jury did not convict on that level. And when you think life sentence, I think you can even take a step and say Miu's current age is 54. You know, we were kind of guessing maybe we would end up somewhere with that 75-year mark in terms of when he gets out at his age of 75, and that is where it netted out. So it's this, who knows what happens with his health and his situation in prison, but at this point he is giving him a window, opening a window for Miu to potentially get out of prison. That would be an age of 75, a little short of that. But
yeah, as you and I heard the judge talking about the life sentence and how he is not looking at that because of the intent, you and I had talked about, we think he's going to be out right around there when you look at the average life expectancy of an American these days. So once the judge started making those statements, it was a flag to he didn't intend on imposing a sentence that guaranteed that Mr. Miu would die in prison.
Defense, what did I want to say about the defense there? They built up his character. You know, he shouldn't be judged completely for 30 seconds. But they did ask. Aaron Nelson did not put a specific number on the table, but he did open the door like probation could work here. You have a guy who, prior criminal record, doesn't need treatment in prison. He's not going to do something like this again. I don't know, was that, did that hit with this judge, or how did you view, you said he could ask for probation.
Yep.
Seemed
not surprising, and he really focused on the standards and had talked about that when considering sentencing, the judge is to start at a position of probation. And so certainly he has to make that argument, but you also heard at the end, he didn't bang the table with it. He didn't ask the judge for a specific number of years in prison either. He really tried to focus on the judge and the judge's analysis of the factors that he's to consider and avoiding vengeance. You heard him talk about justice and that it doesn't involve vengeance over and over again. And so, I think it was a strategic call on behalf of Attorney Nelson, and I think it was a good call there because he didn't throw out a number, so the judge didn't look like, hey, I'm going closer to what the defense was asking for versus the state.
Put yourself on that legal team as defendant. Are you? No winners. No one feels good today, but are you breathing a sigh of relief? I mean, this could have been a death sentence in essence for him today, correct?
Right. This was a just sentence, as Mr. Nelson had said, and I think everyone on the defense team, including Mr. Miu at this point, are exhaling at the moment because now they know. Now they're going to start looking at potential appellate issues and moving forward with that. But Mr. Miu right now knows, here's my number, here's my age. And so both he and his family are exhaling, and hopefully, again, although not what they were seeking, hopefully the victims' families and the victims themselves have some closure because now this phase of the court proceeding is done.